Ramona Pascual, women's bantamweight fighter. You're going to be fighting at Icon Federation 7 on June the 11th. Thank you very much for coming on MMA Lowdown. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. I've been looking forward to talking to you. I've been able to understand more about your career from the beginning up until the current stage and everything between. So it's been good to kind of understand and get to learn more about you. So you're the first female fighter hailing out of Hong Kong to carve a career in MMA.
Yes, that's right.
How does that feel?
It feels, I mean, it feels great. That was never really the plan. I think when I started the career, Hong Kong already had professional female fights or one female fight, and there were a few fighters, and I wasn't sure how far it was going to go, and it just organically built up into this big thing where I just committed my whole life to it. And yeah, it's kind of just shaping up to be forging the path that I had nobody in Hong Kong to sort of look at to be like, well, I'm going to do what she's doing, because the sport is quite new there still, or it's still developing. There are certain barriers that sort of prevent it from growing further. And which is why like a lot of us sort of had to leave there to progress our careers. But it feels good, to sort of be able to show people what is possible, coming from Hong Kong, people who might be interested in getting into MMA, younger girls, because the sport continues to grow and it continues to, gain mainstream attention. So it's only going to attract more people to it.
Yeah, it's grown immensely like across the world. I mean, the sport's still young, if you will, in terms of comparing it to other type of stuff. So it's amazing to see the type of buzz that it's generated. So in yourself, with that type of the way that it's been described then, would you say that the Western media's kind of put that more as the narrative then, as opposed to the media in the East not being so familiar with it?
Yes, I think definitely it's more prevalent in the West. In Europe, the MMA scene has been a lot more developed than it is in Asia. Obviously, the North American scene, where it originated. So it's getting there, but UFC has done such a good job in promoting themselves internationally that it wasn't difficult really to gain people's attention and try to get people interested in it. I think now the push is to try to develop regional fighters from the areas that they want to gain, they want to develop the most, and getting them to a certain level to sort of match the level of the people out here, of the people in Europe, to hopefully get more people interested in the sport, involved, and just to spectate.
Yeah. So you've been called a Trailblazer. So I've read a few articles in that. I've read the Trailblazer kind of term. Now, that's a tag that typically gets applied to like women's fighters like Ronda Rousey or Liz Carmouche, particularly for the contribution that they brought to the sport in the early days. So if we're assigning that type of tag to yourself, do you feel then, based on that, that you've opened doors for people? So people who are maybe hesitant to make that plunge because of where they came from, do you think that the kind of moves that you've made have been inspiring, and have you been able to witness that like directly?
Yeah, I feel like somewhat of a responsibility with that term. Sometimes when I read it, I'm a bit shocked. I'm like, whoa, that's it's very intense. I think, I don't know. I guess it's when I'm doing what I'm doing every single day, day in and day out, I'm not really paying so much attention to external sort of sources, and it's always the media comes into the picture whenever there's a fight coming up, and then I get an opportunity to sort of reflect on that. But yeah, I just feel like I'm just doing what I'm doing because I love to do it. And so it never really came from a point of like, I want to be a pioneer, or I want to be someone doing something different, or, trying to stand out from the crowd. It was more just, this is the path that I want to walk, and I'm going to do my absolute best to walk it, and to overcome, my own limits, to continually face and persevere. And it's really just, it's more of like a relationship with yourself, I think, this whole journey. And it could be in fighting, it could be in any other sport, it could be in starting a business, or, any other project that means something to you. To put yourself in uncomfortable positions, to be willing to really suffer to a certain degree, to figure out what your weaknesses are, see what you need to address. And that's kind of what drew me to the sport. It was challenging, but it was a sort of challenge that I was willing to face. And sports is all about being able to endure and persevere rather than what people think is like to win. So I didn't come in here I didn't get into MMA because I was amazing at it and because I
Yeah.
thought that I could win. I got into it because I was willing to be bad at it. And then, you just, like, all those days just accumulate. And then eventually, I'm improving. And as I improve, as I choose to, as I face these fears, as I overcome, as I learn, as I grow, as I develop a better attitude towards learning and failure and losing, it's kind of sort of brought me here. And so I think that title of Trailblazer is it's just a byproduct, I think, of, deciding that this is what I wanted to do and trying to be as best as I can at it.
Yeah, I think that along the way, I know that it's got many connotations to it, but I think that on the basis of what you've said there, so like Ronda and stuff, they've been put into that position due to what they've been able to do in the sport as well. But for yourself, based on your attitude going into it and the real purpose you're going into it, I think that's good, and I think it could be assigned if we're putting it based on that. So I'd say Trailblazer's a cool way to put it.
Yeah, well, thank you.
No problem. So your next fight is going to be at Icon 7. So this is actually your first fight in 2 years. So just over a week out. How are we feeling going into this one?
Feeling very good. In the last, you could say, almost 4 years, I've only fought once.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've spent a lot of time waiting, a lot of time really needing to work on being patient with so many different circumstances, fights falling through, COVID hitting, needing to relocate to a different country just for opportunities. It's been quite the process. So by this point, I'm just really excited to get in there. And I fully trust in my preparation. I moved over here. I've been training pretty consistently since November of last year, as soon as I was able to go back to Shanghai where I was training at the time. And then I was there for 3 months, headed home for a month, and then made this move out here to Vegas where I've been, acclimating, getting to know my new team. And yeah, really developing a lot and being consistent every single day with, trying to develop and keep my fitness up and, develop in the strength area as well, technically, and, always physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And so I feel really good going into this. It's, about time, and I'm just taking it all in for what it is, not being too high, not being too low.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just really embracing what is to come. And I think, going into it from like, as cliche as it is, like a place of gratitude, because I know how difficult it is to get these things, signed, sealed, and delivered. I'm just glad that it's happening, and I can't wait to get in there and, show everyone what I've been working on.
Yeah, it's very much portrayed like in the way, like if we're going by your social medias, the preparation, the training, the kind of attitude going in, it seems like it's really amazing, and that you're probably buzzing for this one perhaps more than you have anyone in the past due to all the circumstances that's been going on.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm in the right place, like where else, fight capital of the
Yeah,
world, like
exactly.
like a Disneyland, right? For MMA fighters out here. Like there's so many fighters within like such a small, radius, a
Yeah.
lot of different teams, and so being able to see as well a lot of high level, guys and girls in the UFC see their process, and that inspires me a lot as well um, to do what I do. Especially, I see the kind of high level, high profile fights that they're going to, and it kind of takes a lot of pressure off me because
Hmm.
it's like I'm doing this smaller show and not taking anything away from the fact that it is the biggest fight of my career. It's still, I don't need to deal with all of the hype, the media, and all the
Hmm.
pressure that comes with it. And it'll be nice to just go down there, have a good time and just do what I love.
And that's part of the journey. I mean, obviously, that's one of those things where you're going to be seeing people in that position, whilst fortunately, perhaps you're not sitting there with all that big, huge kind of media uproar and that just now. So it's probably a better position for you just now as you progress and progress up to that stage as well. So you had a traumatic injury some years ago that I've been able to read into. Now, I won't delve too much into it, but if we're talking about going into a fight, injury prone that you've had, the recovery process that you've had now, are you feeling good and confident with that? Like everything healed, not any kind of concerns going into that and using the knee again?
Yeah, no concerns at all.
Oh,
The body kind of just adapts to things. I wouldn't say I'm like my leg is just exactly the same as it was before, but it doesn't affect my training whatsoever.
mhm.
And I've been able to just like work around certain areas. And if anything, it's just like a little bit tighter, just needs a little bit more maintenance than it used to. But I'm still able to do what I can do. And I think, compared to back then, and that was a few years
Mhm.
ago, I'm way more technically sound than I was before. So, and even with that, I mean, I don't really feel it when I'm competing, when I'm training. So it's really like not an issue at all.
So would you find ways then, like in ways that you maneuver and use your knee? Then would you be able to find a way to use it that could perhaps protect it? And as you
Um,
said, you're more technically sound. You can maybe find a
yeah,
better way to manipulate it and use it.
I guess I'm more mindful of my body.
Yeah,
Obviously, like
yeah.
the more you get injured, the more aware you become of, where your limits are and like what you can do to improve stability and all that. So, I do all the work that I need to. I, stay pretty committed to my strength conditioning just to make sure I'm not missing out on any stabilizer muscles needing to be developed and therefore causing injuries, and just really managing training load as well is a big one,
Mhm.
and not pushing. I think the main thing with that injury was, overtraining, and that happens so to everyone in this
Yeah.
sport. It's almost unavoidable, and it comes from a place of, I people might disagree, I don't know, but I think for me and like what I've seen around me, it comes from a place of insecurity sometimes, because sometimes you feel like there's just more to be done before a fight and you just need to push a little harder, you need to do an
Mhm.
extra session, you need to force yourself to do something when you feel absolutely fried, and it's not, it's not going to be a quality session anyway because you just don't have the nervous system support to really maximize on it, but you
Yeah.
push ahead anyway, and then bad things can happen. You can pop a knee, shoulder, all these things. And so, I mean, you can never, you don't want to be lazy either. Obviously, there's a fine line, but at this, I mean, most fighters, like, you're probably going to do more too much than too little. So it's, going one session, missing a session isn't as detrimental as going one session over what you should have. And I think that was a tough lesson that I had to learn from that. And so, you know, it was in the end something that helps me regulate my training volume and my routine to this day. So,
Yeah. So yeah, yes, something good coming out of something so traumatic as well, and the resilience and stuff shows. So that's awesome. So you're fighting against Guadalupe Guzman now. She's making her pro debut. If I'm correct, what do you know about her?
I don't know much about her at all. I've all I've seen is like a clip of her. I think it must have been an amateur fight, but she's not, I think this, so I in Asia, we don't have amateur leagues. So if you want to go into MMA, you sort of go straight into the pro circuit, and then, immediately any mistakes that you make, it's up on Sherdog, right? It's not like in, here, in South America, North America, Europe, or, in Australia, where they have amateur leagues where you can sort of make your mistakes before you go pro. So she's had amateur fights. So she's not just, you think, oh, debuting. It's not like, in Asia where someone debuts and really has zero MMA competitive experience. She's been there in the cage. I've seen a clip of her fighting. So even though I've had more pro fights, like she could have had equally as many amateur fights, that I haven't been able to have. So I don't know too much about her, but I have a little bit of information, and other than that, I'm just focused on what I need to do.
Yeah. So that's what I was about to ask you as well, actually, because I was looking for tapes. I was just wanting to get a bit of an understanding behind it, see if she's, how they say that people who have literally just started fighting, you can kind of tell immediately. I was looking to get some kind of tape, couldn't find any. So in your preparation, so you fought pros before and that, right? So how do you prepare for someone who you've not been able to watch too much tape for? Is that, again, something that you just go and focus on your own abilities rather than worry about theirs?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think there's, in some ways it's like more of a relief, but in other ways a little bit more pressure because, you don't know anything about this person. You don't know what their style is. And if you look at, if you assume that she's less experienced, like they're probably going to come rush at you, be a little less patient. And so needing to be very careful in the beginning, in the first round, like trying to, they could just try to think that they want to knock you out and then just throw these big shots, right? Whereas see more seasoned fighters sort of take their time, feel you out and everything. So there's always the possibility of that, but also not knowing too much about a person. You're not constantly thinking about them. You're not constantly thinking about all the things that they can do, which gives you space to sort of work on your strengths and, visualize how you want the fight to go. So I'm not bothered by that.
Awesome. So you've got a record at the moment, so it's 4-2-0. So I've been able to look into your background as such. Now, your last fight, perhaps one of your most dominant. Now, you must be feeling pretty good going into this one based on your last performance. How do you feel? Do you feel like you're good to go? Do you feel you're going to replicate what you've done before, or are you just going to kind of wait and see?
We're just going to have to wait and see. I never want to assume anything. I always want to take into consideration every possibility, every situation that we could possibly be in, especially the bad situations. And a lot of people kind of think like, oh no, you got to go in there with like confidence and like not think about, not think about losing or not think about like being in these tough situations. But I mean, for me, it's just like take everything in consideration, like sit with it. And so if you were to get in that situation, you're not going to, freak out. I'm a big believer in just accepting that, accepting all the possibilities, and then just being present and focusing on what you need to do. I don't think it's sort of like, oh, don't go in there with fear, like don't have fear. It's like, no, everyone has fear, right? So you just have to accept that it's there, like get to understand the fear that drives you, where it comes from, how much power, how strong it is. And then you can sort of start addressing it and being able to, separate yourself from it and not sort of deny its presence, which ultimately just perpetuates even, an even stronger feeling of that negative emotion. So so am I confident based on my last performance? It was so long ago, and something I didn't really get to show so much of myself, in that fight as well. It's like I don't know what it's going to be like if I get to the third round, how I'm going to look. So there's certain things that like, yeah, it's cool to like get a quick finish, but I also don't know how I will be able to perform under pressure when the fight gets drawn out, when I get into tough positions. So, I'm confident based on the preparation that I've had in the last few months here and
Hmm.
all the things that I've learned. I'm not really going to go off of, that past experience to sort of tell me how to feel about this.
Yeah. So, in some circles, based on your record in comparison to another record that's not been able to gather up and notch some kind of wins and a kind of ratio going across. So, in some circles, this would be called a tune up fight. Would you disagree with that term then at this moment?
Um, you can definitely see it that way for sure. But at the same time, like you have all these younger competitors getting into MMA and learning. It's like the sport has developed so much. So back when I was starting out, I started fighting MMA when I had jujitsu and Muay Thai. Like I didn't have any wrestling experience and I fought 4 times. Granted, I lost 2 of the 4, because of just lack of experience, lack of awareness, lack of wrestling, lack of a lot of things. So even though, you have somebody who doesn't have, that doesn't make them any less dangerous,
No, no, of course.
because the sport has developed, especially in areas where, here, South America, North America, where MMA is more prevalent. You have to be really careful with those opponents because they could just have learned a lot in a short period of time and just really surprise you, because you take somebody who's debuting in Asia, making your pro debut, and you compare them to someone debuting, over here in America, South America, North America, doesn't matter. Like, I'm sure you'd see quite a big difference just because of the availability of information, knowledge, and, level of coaching. So while you could see it as a tune-up fight, it's still going to be a dangerous fight. I can't expect to go in there like run her over. Like she's gonna be swinging for sure. Like she's a fighter.
Yeah.
Sometimes that fighting switch just like kind of goes, and ultimately it doesn't matter who's more prepared. Sometimes in certain situations it's whoever's more aggressive, whoever wants it more when it becomes a dog fight. So um yeah, I mean, you can see it in so many different ways, and I choose to see it in like you know in a be cautious, and I'm gonna have to be at my best. I'm not really gonna lay back or relax on anything. I'm just gonna approach this as I would if this were my UFC debut, like the
Mhm.
same kind of focus, the same kind of determination and mentality.
It's a very candid way to look at it. I mean, there's so few fighters who look at it like that because a lot of people are kind of like guns blazing and they're like, no, I'm going to win this. I've got that tunnel vision. Whereas you're being very candid, you're being realistic. Anything can happen on the night. So, yeah, it's refreshing to hear that, certainly from someone in your position. So, no, that's awesome. So, I just wanted to delve into training a wee bit, right? So, I've been able to see that your training has changed over the last wee while. So the last few months, you've been at Syndicate MMA. So you've been working with fellow countrywomen of mine, Joanne Calderwood. You've been working with Nico Montano, Roxanne Modafferi. So if we're basing your previous training to your training at Syndicate, would you say that it's evolved, and in what ways?
Oh, that's a really good question. It is definitely very different. There's I would say, MMA has been around here. This is sort of ground zero for MMA.
Yeah.
So a lot of the techniques, it's all just been things that are tried and tested, in the octagon. John goes and corners somebody almost every other weekend, on these big shows. If it's not the UFC, it's a PFL,
Yeah.
Bellator, and so um, I think the difference is more maybe in like the chain wrestling aspect of things,
Mm-hmm.
and striking for MMA. So I think in Asia we always focus a little bit more on striking, or most people have more of a striking background, but more of like a stand-up striking background. Being able to tie striking in together with wrestling um, is such an art in itself that I was doing in Shanghai. We did quite a lot of it,
Yeah.
but I think over here there's a little bit more um, of a system in place with the chain aspect of it,
Hmm.
from standing to the ground, and then further, what to do with ground control, ground and pound, where to get somebody, how to breathe, in between, how to be more efficient with certain strikes and shots.
Yeah.
And I think training partners here, obviously, like at such a high level, super
Yeah.
seasoned, so being able to be around that those girls and around that level of talent has been really, really helpful, because they take training really, really seriously. Everything is tight. There's a certain level of professionalism that you can feel
Yeah.
when they're going, and when we're drilling. It's not just trying on a technique and then sort of being like just laying there. It's somebody's trying a technique on you, but you're like trying to get up, and then active the whole time. So it's very active drilling. And I think yeah, just the energy around that of having
Hmm.
so many high level competitors is also really exciting.
Yeah, the gym seems very hard working. Like I said, every time you're looking at it, you're seeing Coach Wood getting everybody together, kind of rallying the troops, if you will, and going to town. And as I said, you're surrounded by a lot of great people, a lot of really talented people. And I mean, let's just hope that that's able to be demonstrated in your next fight. Now, I've seen that you actually trained at Extreme Couture as well. So, with the likes of Misha Tate and like Casey O'Neill and that, did that evolve in different ways as well, or was that just kind of a kind of bypass, kind of stop between Shanghai and Syndicate?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I came out here, I was new to town, so I kind of wanted to try out both
Oh, of
teams.
course. Hmm.
Yeah, so I think ultimately the biggest deciding factor was having met John Wood, and then within the first couple of days of being there, I'd already gotten a lot of constructive feedback from him, and I think
Hmm.
just a smaller gym atmosphere just suited me a little bit better in terms of wanting to focus more on technical development, and being able to work with a coach who has eyes on me, like on a consistent basis. And also, the number of girls that we have over at Syndicate who are all very good in their own right, and
Yeah.
being around them and learning a lot from them and feeling that kind of pressure has been really great. I think a lot of my confidence now comes from the fact that they've been pushing me so much, and really elevating me, and encouraging me, and being great training partners, putting the pressure when it's needed, and giving me all kinds of different looks, because we got
Hmm.
southpaws, orthodox, grapplers, strikers, and it's been really great to yeah, polish things up over there, and it's just been a great fit for me.
Hmm. No, you can tell, you can see the kind of levels above other places and stuff as well. So, considering you've been training and getting ready for this fight with UFC top tier talent as well, is the UFC somewhere that you'd be hoping to go in the future as a kind of professional in a long term career?
Yeah, that's the goal.
The goal, yeah,
That's I think you talk to any unsigned MMA fighter, they're probably going to say the same thing.
of course.
um but yeah, I definitely want to get there. I want to, yeah, I think it's all about, like I said earlier, just being the best that I can be. I want to see where my ceiling is,
Hmm.
my ceiling of potential. Like, if I'm sure I'm going to reach it at some point, and I really want to know where that is. But before I get there, I want to make sure that I'm well equipped to, progress in the fastest way that I can.
Hmm.
And I believe that that's what's happening here at Syndicate. I get the opportunity to work with a great team, great coaches, and I feel very equipped to, be able to prove myself. And I get to do that, in 12 days for the first time, and then hopefully build momentum and be able
Hmm.
to, show everyone what I'm capable of, and be worthy for that contract at some point.
Damn right. So, are you fighting at 135 pound?
So this one's at 145 because I'm
145. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm hoping to hoping to line something up in July for 135.
Okay.
But we're gonna have to get through this and then see.
Have you been able to look at the UFC 135-pound division recently?
Yeah, as much as I can, as much as I can. So I know that it's. I think as soon as the 125 division opened up, there are a few
Mhm.
girls that sort of dropped.
Yeah.
So it's not as sort of busy as it was back in the day. But yeah, it's an interesting time to be getting in there. I think there are a lot of veterans in the
Yeah.
division.
Hmm.
You don't really see many new people.
Yeah, I mean we've got Nunes and stuff, and we've got Felicia Spencer now. We've got like we see Norma Dumont as well, making that kind of step up recently, which is great. Does she train with you, or is that me just getting mixed up?
Yeah, yeah. She trains at
Right. Okay.
Syndicate. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Norma Dumont, and hopefully she plans to stick around because it's a division that has got so much potential. Although we found that a lot of people, as you said, are kind of dropping down and stuff. We certainly hope that for yourself, for your sake as well, when you get across there, they're going to have a 135-pound division. There's the prospect of fighting people. So, as in line with how candid you've been in terms of your ability and your progression and getting up to that stage, have you ever secretly envisioned yourself ever like fighting Nunes and just kind of taking it to Nunes at all?
I think you always have to visualize that,
Yeah.
you know? Like I think anyone out there, like if you're a lightweight guy, you know, you could be, you know, just starting your career, you're probably going to think about, you know, the guy who's the champ right now, right?
Oh, of
It's always
course.
you always think about it. So, I mean, I am going to take this as far as I can. And if I ever get that opportunity to fight Nunes, that would be phenomenal. I would
Yeah.
love that. I would absolutely love that, you know, because if I were to get there, it would just mean that I've proven myself to
Hmm.
everybody that I deserve that spot. And, you know, I'm not, I try not to be outcome oriented. You know, it's all about all about the process.
Hmm.
I know I'm doing the right things. I know that my head is on the right place. I know that I'm making the right decisions. I have the right people around me. And yeah, I'm building momentum, and the only way is up. So we'll see where
Yeah.
that takes me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I mean, the thing is about the sport not being a fighter, but being a spectator, being able to see it. Sometimes people are only two, three fights away from achieving that goal and getting there. So happens if you win this, you can get a couple more fights, perhaps jump over to another organisation, work your way up. Um, it's not too outlandish to kind of say that you could be in that position at one point. I mean, the sport's pretty mad and unpredictable. So I just wanted to ask you on that. So Icon 7, so are you currently a fighter on their roster or is this like a one fight contract?
It's just a one fight contract.
Yeah. And have you had a chance to chat about if you win this? Is there going to be an approach to maybe check out people like the PFL and Bellator and all that, or is it just get this out of the way, see what happens after that?
Yeah, just gonna get this out of the way and see what happens. You know, it's sort of difficult to get opportunities because I haven't fought on this side
Mm-hmm.
of the earth yet. You know, so need to get that going. Also, it's, you know, off of a long or relatively long layoff. So get this going, and then once this happens, I can hopefully open doors to hopefully something in July. And if I got, you know, two fights under my belt this year, that just makes me more attractive for, you know, shows to kind of get me on, because then they'll know that I'm active.
Yeah, and you've got time on your side as well. I mean, you've got a good few year that you can still kind of get to that, get to your prime, and get to that goal. So the card that you're on just now, right? So Icon 7, I've been able to have a look. I've been able to see the attention going across. There's been a kind of contrast in opinions. People have been talking about, oh, this is low level. Oh, people like Amanda Serrano on it's going to be bringing a name to it. Have you been able to, from your own observations, get a lot of good feedback and feel a good kind of energy about the card overall?
Yeah, there's another guy from Syndicate, Johnny Parsons, who's also
Okay.
fighting on the card.
Hmm.
I've had teammates that have fought for them before, so yeah, I've just heard really good things about them as an organization. Beyond that, you know, I'm kind of new to the scene here, so I don't know too much else. But yeah, I'm excited to, to also it's on UFC Fight Pass, so
Yeah, that's halfway there. That's getting there,
yeah.
I mean, I know a couple of like Jason Knight. I don't know if you know Jason Knight. He was a lightweight fighter in the UFC. He's fought for Icon 7 as well. So, well, Icon, the organisation. So, a lot of people's going there. And the thing is, though, when you're seeing people who get up to the top tier level and that, you're seeing the organisations they've fought in to kind of get to that stage. And a lot of people maybe need to try and remember sometimes that the wrong way to do it would just be to jump in the UFC and just kind of go, right, I'm on the main card of the prelims and all that. I think the way that you're doing it now is organic, and I think that it's in light of injuries and inactivity. I think it's a really brilliant way to be going. I think so.
Yeah. I think just, bite off what you can chew.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to, I think there's a way to do it, in the sport, because a couple bad matchups just could land you, not in the place that you want to be.
The
Um,
sport.
you know, yeah, and it's a sport. Like you're not really, the sport doesn't really allow you either to fight the same person more than once, typically,
Mm-hmm.
but on rare occasion they do. So, you have to make sure those 15 minutes that you're out there are, your best 15 minutes, and not sort of walking into something that you're unprepared for. Not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily saying that you need to, fix fights or anything like that, but not sort of take on too much, more than you should at that certain point, because cage experience counts for so much.
Yeah.
Um, so you want to get that cage experience, you want to get in there, you want to know what that feels like, to be in that in the cage, how the canvas feels beneath your feet, people around you, and not kind of go from like, a crowd of 100 to straight into like crowd of 5,000, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that'll do something to your nerves, adrenaline dump, all that. So
Imagine.
to do it a little bit slower, and then it's all about gaining confidence. And,
Yeah.
if you can do it slowly, like then your confidence just builds. And then eventually when you get to the point where, you need it the most, you're going to have it.
Yeah, I think, as I said, I think it's the right way to be doing it as well. It'd be interesting to talk to you again in maybe 6 months or something, just kind of see the differences in terms of a couple of fights under your belt and that. So it'd be good. I'd hope we can get something organised like that. So before we go, what type of Romana could we expect on the night?
I'm sorry, say again.
Yeah, so before we wrap this up and I'll let you go on with your day, what type of fighter are we going to expect on the night from yourself?
Composed, hopefully, focused. I don't want to rush into anything. I want to properly assess how she's going to move, properly assess the situation. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But if and when the opportunity presents itself for a finish, I'm going to go for it.
So no predictions on the outcome.
Nope, none.
No,
I don't like to do that,
no.
because then it's just like anything's possible. I could win by decision. I could finish her. I believe I'm gonna win because that's why I'm doing this, right? Like
Yeah.
I day in and day out, like this is the confidence that I've gotten from the team that I've been training with here, the preparation, and ultimately I just need to make sure that I'm in the prime physical and mental state to be able to express myself as best as I can. And I know that if I'm at my best, there's like no way I will lose.
That's the best. That's the best type of response. Very candid again, as I was saying. So I really appreciate you taking time to come on the show. Taking some time out your day as well. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, thank you.
No, and I wish you the best of luck. And I'll be tuning in, as will many other people be tuning in to watch you fighting on Icon 7. And hopefully catch up another time, see how you're doing in a few months.
All right, thank you.
Take care, all right? Thank you for your
All
time.
right, thank you.